School bully crushes my family jewels, so I make his phone and girlfriend disappear. Here's what happened. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk on YouTube and hit the bell for notifications. A long time ago, I was a young man in an all-boys secondary school. I was about 14 for any international readers, and my friends and I were regularly bullied by a large group of older guys. Being typical nerdy boys, we were prime candidates for bullying. The only saving grace was that we were quite a large group ourselves, so no one person was targeted more than any other. Unfortunately, that didn't matter as the bullying was brutal. On our school grounds, there was a small cabin that belonged to the local Boy Scouts that we used to hang out around on our lunch break. One day, we had a run-in with the bullies when they tried to steal our football. For daring to not hand it over, I was singled out for punishment. So I was grabbed by 4 of them, each grabbing an arm and a leg, and carried around the corner to a small courtyard with a flagpole in the middle. After a few punches for struggling, I was swung backwards and forwards a few times before being swung legs apart and full force into the pool. Any attempts to describe how painful that was wouldn't do it justice. Thankfully, one of my friends had made a run for the teacher, and they were spotted coming towards the group by a lookout before they had a chance to take another swing, and they dropped me and legged it. I was carried off to the school's office, nauseous and in tears, and my mom was called. She found me with an ice pack between my legs and goalies the size of oranges. As she was talking to the receptionist and teacher, my friends ran up to me and passed me a mobile phone. I was confused, as I didn't own one, and it was at a time when they weren't nearly as common as they are now, and they didn't even have games on them yet. It was an early Nokia with an LCD screen. I looked at my friend and asked whose it was. He told me one of the bullies had dropped it as they ran off, and he thought that I should have it as a small way of getting back at him. I took the phone and left with my mom. That evening, I was in my bedroom feeling sorry for myself, and I'd forgotten about the phone in my blazer pocket until I heard it go off. I took it out and saw he'd received a text message from his girlfriend. This was before phones had sophisticated locks, and the bully hadn't set a passcode. I had no idea which bully had owned the phone, but I had his name now at least. I decided to mess with him. I was off school the next day, but when I went back in, I talked to my friends about it and we came up with a plan. One of my friends with a mobile phone was going to leave a message pretending to be a guy he'd recently met, and we were going to make it look like he'd been having a relationship with him and meeting in secret. We carried on sending messages for the rest of the week, and I was also replying to his girlfriend, although I deliberately made my replies shorter and less intimate than they had been before I got hold of the phone. I'd arranged for my bully to meet his girlfriend in the local town that Saturday, but was planning to stand her up, while simultaneously having my friend text the phone about ditching her to go to his place instead. I replied, agreeing, and said I'd tell her I couldn't make it. I didn't. I'd waited in town where we were supposed to meet, and saw a girl walk up and wait for a bit. She then got out her phone and typed a text. The phone went off in my pocket. I left it alone. She waited a few more minutes and texted me again. This time, I walked around the corner out of sight and messaged her back asking who this was. She flipped out and shouted at me for messing around with her. I told her that I had found this phone on the floor of the bus station in that town, and if she knew the owner, I'd come and give it to her so she could give it back to the owner if she was nearby. She told me where she was, and I waited 5 minutes before walking around the corner and looking around for her. Eventually, through texting, we found each other and I gave her the phone. She thanked me and we went our separate ways. On Monday, I told my friends that we'd pulled it off, and we just had to wait and see what happened. It wasn't long into the week when gossip started spreading through the school. The bully's girlfriend had read his messages, it seemed, and had dumped him for having a gay affair. On top of that, she'd done it by going to his house on Sunday and calling him out in front of his parents, who, it turns out, were not fans of that sort of thing at all. When he denied it, she pulled out the phone and read out message after message. His claims that he had lost it over a week ago were ignored, and I went unsuspected. In response, his parents pretty much disowned him, and he was only saved by his uncle, who was a little more understanding. He had lost contact with a lot of his friends, as his uncle's house was a lot further away, so hanging out after school or on the weekend was almost impossible, and his preference for men was so well known by now that no girl seemed interested. As far as I know, his parents never took him back, and he moved to London to go to university to escape his reputation. I had only expected to break up that jerk and his girlfriend, but that was an unexpected bonus. I'd say it went too far, but having your nuts smashed off a flagpole tends to harden you to the plight of your bully. Wow, you had quite the plan set up here. I wish I was half as creative as these people on Reddit, honestly. Maybe I could have dealt with some of the jerks I've had to deal with over the years. This one does feel like it kind of blew up way more than our poster intended, though. Was the pain our original poster endured worth essentially ruining one of those bullies' lives? I don't know, but I totally understand you wanting to get back at them in some way. Maybe this just spiraled a little out of control, though. Entitled Kid wants my PS4 as an apology for a fight that he started. For our cast today, we have the Entitled Kid, Entitled Mother, me, and Neighbors 1 and 2, two neighborhood kids. The neighbor kids are actually pretty cool. The entitled kid was just older than them, and so had some authority. Now, let's dive in. One summer day last year, I had just turned 14. I was playing some basketball with these two kids from my neighborhood in their driveway. Their family is pretty rich, so they have a fully paved driveway, big enough to be a sizable court. It's just me and them for about a half an hour, until Satan's son himself came over from down the street. This kid is literally the stereotypical brat who made the select soccer team 3 years ago and still thinks that he runs the place. So we let him join in the game and everything is fine for a bit. I'm a little bit on the bigger side, but I'm really strong. So I play really well as a center, posting up in that. The entitled kid is guarding me, and he's getting worked. He's shorter and not as strong, so he's getting dominated. Here's the major incident. I've just grabbed a loose ball, and I'm running back towards the basket. The other kid gets back before me and stops my drive. So I start to back him down again. He must have just been really frustrated by him not getting a chance on defense. So he thinks up a plan. At this point, I was wearing a hoodie, and this jerk grabs my hood from behind and pulls as hard as he can. I, not expecting my airflow to be cut off, especially when I'm breathing hard, start to panic. I can't shake him off my back. I don't know how long he's hanging on, but it felt like a whole 45 seconds. That may not seem that long, but I'm freaking the heck out with no air, so it feels like forever. An eternity later, he loosens his grip and I finally get him off. I'm absolutely fired up, so I punch him right on the nose. Definitely not as hard as I could, but it certainly would have hurt a lot. This little brat, however, drops like he's out cold. Meanwhile, I'm on my knees trying to get my breath back. He's bawling his eyes out, rolling and screaming and all that, being the melodramatic turd that he is. But his mom is running over, and it was that moment where I knew I was screwed. Now, sometime between when he started and when I socked him, his mother came out, but she's the typical I'm gonna speak to the manager, white upper middle class mom who volunteers to be the head of the PTA every year, and goes to Starbucks 20 times a day, and the entitled kid is very much her son. Oh my god, are you okay? What did you do to him? He just nearly choked me out, so I punched him. Why would you do that? You're so much bigger than him. But he was choking me out. Come on, dude, you gotta be more mature about this. Well, what do you expect me to do? Apologize to him for making him choke me? This whole thing goes on for a little while until the neighbors step in to try to protect me. Original poster didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, you didn't even hit him that hard. But OP shouldn't be hitting people in the first place. Especially not my son. Yes, she actually said especially not my son. But it was basically a trade-off. Why are you guys trying to protect him? He should probably go inside. He don't know what you're talking about. They keep trying to help me out, but to no avail. This just continues for another 5 minutes before entitled kid gets up and limps, yes, limps back to his house. I just go home, cause I'm sick of this crap and I'm tired. The next day, I try to go back over, but the entitled kid is there already. Neither of his parents' cars are there, so I assume that he's staying at the neighbor kid's house until they come back. I decide to go back inside because I don't want to interact with him. A couple hours later, entitled kid shows up at our door with his mom standing at the gate of our fence. Hi, original poster. I was just coming over to say sorry for choking you yesterday. I won't ever do it again. At this point, my mom comes to see who I'm talking to and she asks what's going on. Entitled mother pipes up and says, "We're here for your forgiveness gift." My what? Your forgiveness gift. It's a tradition in our family that the person who apologizes this last has to give the other person something to make up for it. My mom. Excuse me, what's going on? I explain what happened, and as I explain what happened, she seems to get more and more disgusted by the situation. I finish explaining and turn back to entitled kid who had tried to correct my story while I was explaining it to my mom, saying things like, he punched me twice in the face and then kicked me in the nuts while I was crying on the ground. My mom is basically a bomb-sniffing dog for lies, so I can see from her face that she knows that's bull. I turn back to entitled kid. My mom, I'm sorry, but we don't do forgiveness gifts in this family. We do in this one. Entitled kid picked something out. Entitled kid looked around and saw my PS4, and he points at it. Mommy, I want that. Keep in mind that this kid is just about a year younger than I am. Too old for mommy. Too old for this whole situation in my opinion. Entitled mother walks up to our door and sees it's my PS4. Great, we'll take that as our gift. My mom, with steam billowing out of her ears, slams the door in their faces and quickly locks it. They start pounding on the door so hard that it sounds like they're trying to break it down. We leave the door, but they stay there pounding on the door for at least another 5 minutes before finally leaving. I still leave my neighbor's house anytime I see that jerk or his mom walking down the block. You know, some of these stories I read, and I can't believe that people like this exist in the world. The mother of this child seems to be completely out of her mind, in my opinion. What kind of parenting is that this is how you solve problems? Your son gets in a fight, and you just believe everything he says regarding it? Then you expect the other kid to give up a very expensive piece of video game tech as an apology. This just seems completely clueless. You've done nothing to actually resolve the situation, and it sounds like you're just trying to use this as an excuse to get free stuff. Maybe you don't want to have to buy your kid a PlayStation, but that doesn't mean you take a situation like this and twist it around to try and get something out of it. This whole situation is just disgusting. Cashier Karen refuses to accept my debit card, claiming that I'm too young to have one. I'm a 22-year-old guy that looks like a young teenager. People usually say 13 to 15, unless I'm dressed up, at which point I look about 18. It doesn't help that I'm barely 5'5" on a good day, so I often end up in situations where people assume I'm too young to be doing whatever it is I'm doing. This was one of the more ridiculous times, though I have tons more. This happened earlier this year. I was taking my two youngest siblings to a local German bakery/deli to grab some fresh pretzels for lunch. We order the pretzels, no problem, then take it up to the cashier to pay. The cashier is an older lady, and she initially accepts my debit card from me without question. She turns around and looks at it a bit more, then faces me. So you obviously are name on card. What do you mean? You look way too young to be name on card, and you're too young to have a credit card anyway. At this point, I'm pretty frustrated. One, it's a debit card, not a credit card. Second, my name is a little old-fashioned and traditional for someone my age, but it's still my name. Triple whammy with the age comment too. Besides, as far as I know, there's no minimum age for a debit card. Even kids can be authorized users and cardholders on their parents' accounts. I tell her, I can show you my ID if you want. Sure. What she doesn't realize is that not only did I have my driver's license, I also had my military dependent ID and my personal military ID/CAC, as I was in the National Guard at the time. So I slapped down my military ID, my dependent ID, my driver's license, my college student ID, and my actual credit card for good measure. All valid, up to date, and with the same name on them as my debit card. So can you run my card now? The jerk mumbles something and sticks my card into the reader, then returns it without saying anything else. The pretzels were delicious. What kind of power trip is this cashier on? The kid's trying to buy some pretzels. For you to say no. Maybe you had a suspicion that the credit card was stolen or something, but you don't get to make that assumption. People's names could be anything. There's no specific name for a specific age. Gwyneth Paltrow named her kid Apple, for God's sake. You can't make an assumption based on someone's name. That's one of the stupidest things I've ever heard. The least she could have done is apologize at the end of it, but you know people like this never do. Entitled mother tries to get me fired because I wouldn't let her take her 2-year-old in the hot tub. So summer of 2017, I worked as a lifeguard at the local water park. At the time, I was 17 and thought that it would be fun to work there. There are lots of crappy things that have happened and lots of stupid people, but this one has stuck with me the most. We had several water slides in a hot tub, which was particularly popular due to the weather averaging in the 70s. We had several safety signs posted around the hot tub, stating things like no more than 10 minutes at a time, no more than 30 people in the tub, and no children under 6. The last one was often because the parents were getting upset because their child was freezing and just wanted to warm up. We would allow children 6 and under to sit on the edge and put their feet in the hot tub. But due to the county health department rules, we aren't allowed to let them be in the tub completely. Enter entitled parent. It was early on a Friday morning just after open, so about 10 o'clock, and there were maybe 6 families in the park, no wait times, and no small children in the kiddie pool. This lady walks up to the hot tub and starts getting in, babe in arms. I guessed by sight this child was maybe 2. I reminded the lady of the rule, but that she could place her child on the edge with feet in the water if she liked. Shortly after, I look back over at the lady, and not only was her child not on the side of the tub, her child was completely submerged in the water, which was another rule. You couldn't put your head under. So I rush over to her and her child to check on the child, and she quickly scooped her child out of the water and placed her on the side of the pool, all well within sight. I said to her, "Ma'am, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to ask you to leave the hot tub if I see you place your child in the water again." She snapped back at me, "Don't call me ma'am. I'm probably the same age as you. Anyways, what's it to you? It's my child, and if I say it's okay, then it's okay." I responded, "I'm sorry, but since I don't know your name, that's what I thought would be appropriate to call you. As much as I would like to let you decide what temperature water is okay for your child, it's part of my job to enforce the rules. And that particular one isn't even created by my employer, but rather the county health department." She scoffed and said, "Sure it is," then rolled her eyes and walked towards the other side of the hot tub. Shortly after she got out of the hot tub, she walked up to one of my coworkers, asked something, then went to the office to speak with my boss. A few minutes later, my boss came to me and said, "Lady just complained to me that you were rude to her. Wanna tell me about what happened?" So I explained that I noticed that she wasn't following our rules and had brought her child into the hot tub regardless of my warnings. My boss was totally understanding and said, "Yeah, that's what I thought. She tried to tell me that you called her kid a little brat and you called her fat. She said she wanted you fired and free tickets to the park. I told her I'd reprimand you and we'd look into what happened. I just came over here to make it look like I was giving you a talking to. That's what I get for trying to look out for some jerk's kid." This lady doesn't realize it, but you actually did her a massive favor. There's a specific reason why kids aren't supposed to be in a hot tub. Their body temperature fluctuates much quicker than ours do. I guarantee that kid was not going to be comfortable after a couple of minutes. Also, I don't think extreme heat like that is good for a kid. There's a reason adults aren't supposed to spend more than 10 minutes in there. There's a reason you're not supposed to dunk your head under. If you had to just let this mother do what she wanted, that kid could have come out the other end a lot worse off. Some people just really don't like being told what to do. Like, there's signs all over the place. She can't turn around and get mad at you for enforcing them. And being perfectly honest, even if there wasn't a sign there saying no kids in the hot tub, if I were in your position, I would still be telling this mother absolutely not. Let her file whatever complaint she wants. At least I know I'm looking out for the kid. Just don't let this interaction weigh on you. She was a jerk and you were just doing your job. And beyond that, just doing what was right in general. No decent person is going to hold that against you. Her turning around and snapping on you just shows the sense of entitlement that this woman has. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, link to the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, give Am I the Genius a shot, linked in the description as well. Either way, thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.